Today's topic is message queues and JMS services. Normally, in an application, you are unlikely to encounter a message queue or a JMS type of situation. But sometimes there are applications, and most common one being IoT, is where the number of uh, transactions is very high uh, per second or per minute. The arrival rate is very high. And if you try to process them using HTTP, your the sender of the message will have to wait until the processing is complete. And what the message queue does is it doesn't process the incoming request immediately, it just puts them in a queue, and the server is free to handle them at a later time. So this is a specific scenario where you may like to use message queues. So let's see how we do it. Again, I'm looking at a minimalistic project, and so again, you can send as well as receive messages using the message queue. And if you're familiar with message queues, there are various providers which it's an external application or a server, such as ActiveMQ, RabbitMQ, and there is also Kafka. So if you plan to use any of these, you can do it using the message queue service. So your container comes built in with a message queue endpoint using which you can send as well as receive, and it comes with a topic and a queue. So what are topics and queues? You should be able to read about message queues and get more details, but generally they're very similar and they're only subtle differences. They both use the same thing, which is the messages are held for later processing. And so let's see how to get started. So we come here and we create an entry point JMS. Now, in a message queue, you can actually send messages of various types, but ZOAPIIO allows you to send only text messages. Text has a text format. It could be JSON, XML, but it cannot be binary. And if it is binary, you can, of course, base 64 encode it and send it as text. So in the JMS endpoint, you have to select the JMS endpoint that is there for that's configured for your container. I'm saying some, but your instance may have different names. You can use this topic of the queue, which means you are configuring a service which will listen to messages coming on that queue, and you're expecting the input messages to be text and containing data in a JSON format. And here again, you need to give a request path. This node doesn't exist, but I'm just doing it for illustration, which means under the request node, you should create JMS message and the rest of the structure, because incoming message is JSON. So whatever is coming, you have to create an appropriate structure where that JSON can be mapped. And so there's another thing, another option which you will not see with other services, which is the number of service threads. So this is again because it's specifically applicable in a high volume situation. And so even you may want that, let's say the message is arriving and the queue is growing. For example, it's the system is not able to handle the messages sufficiently fast because there's only one thread running. So you can increase the number of threads, which will increase the throughput of your processing, and the message in the queue will not build up, or the message backlog will not grow as usual. So assign a logger and active. Again, from here you can control, you can deactivate if you just don't want this to be used anymore, instead of having to delete that entire node. So now hereafter it's just a regular service, except that you don't have to return anything. There is no response from a GMS service, and there's no response because there's nobody listening on the other end. The message came, it was saved, and whoever sent it has let go. So again, you can just do whatever you want. You can add your drag and drop it here, and you can start writing your program. And you can access your input that came, the message that came. It would be extracted as per the details you provided here. So whatever came, it will be treated as a JSON and extracted into this. And then you can read those fields and do whatever needs to be done. So that's for building a GMS processor or a service. Now, you and you can also obviously send messages to topics or queues. So I will show how the sending is done. You can take there's an MQ here and it says JMS send. Now here you have to attach a text message. So here I can say send a message to this queue. And by the way, you could be sending messages to a queue which may be getting processed in your same project. So you can use it even to call services within your own project. Typically, the JMS messages would come from outside and they get put in the queue for you to process. But you can also send messages from within your application to those queues. Okay. And here, let's say, for example, I'll just take something. Let's say just attach it here. Now here, what I want to do is I want to send the contents of this to this topic. Now, now this is a node. That means this is a hierarchical structure. Okay, and this can't be sent as a message because the queue will only accept a text string. Okay, we can't send other kinds of data. So typically, what you would do is you would put in front. So this is a pseudo attribute, and if you read the documentation on pseudo attributes, what this does is it takes the response and attribute pseudo attribute underscore JSON. It takes this and converts it into a JSON string. So now it can be sent onto the topic. And obviously, if if the service you're sending it to expects an XML, then you can say underscore XML, and it'll be formatted as XML and then sent. And if your queue is expecting text messages, then of course you can send any node that's just a plain text. If response was a text or a plain leaf level node, you could just send it. Its contents would be taken as text and sent. So this is how you write parts of your application which may require queues to be an optimum vehicle of implementation. And so that's about it about message queues and JMS.